Joining me now is the incumbent University of London Union President Clare Solomon, who has been in the position for a year and has also served as 2 years as a SAB at SOAS in the past. Clare, welcome to meet the candidates.
Thank you.
Starting with this first question, what do you see as the role of a students' union?
Well, first of all, a students' union is inherently a political position. You are elected as opposed to appointed. So therefore, the role of the officers is always going to be according to the political views that they put on their manifesto. I believe union officers are responsible for a whole number of things: representation, campaigning, student services, ensuring that you have a good bank balance, and ensuring the well-being of the students and staff within the student union.
Now, what do you make a good union president, and why do you think you're better qualified than any of the other candidates who are running in this election?
Well, I'm obviously not going to talk about other candidates.
Sure.
I think it's right. But I think the ULU is obviously significantly different to any other student union in the country. Perhaps Cambridge and Oxford have a similar sort of thing. We're a federal union. We're the umbrella union of 22 different colleges and institutions in the University of London. And I guess what makes a good president is one that's able to reach out to all the parts of the University of London, as we have done this year, as we've seen 11,000 more people through the doors this year on last year, and that's without having done any of the big gigs, because the last year's sabbaticals managed to get rid of the awful contract barfly, which means that we've had a large space that's been highly underused, which is something we're trying to address.
Sure, okay. Now, the ULU president is meant to represent all University of London students to the government, so what skills in particular do you feel that you have to be able to do that?
Well, the issue of representation for all students is always it seems to be a subjective view that you can equally represent all the students. Now, how I see it is that, of course, all the students have lots of different views, different opinions on what a student union should be, different views on issues such as cuts and welfare and that sort of thing. And my door is always open to, and always has been, always open to anybody of any political persuasion. Even people that might have mildly, bigoted views are welcome through the door. But on the other hand, I'm not going to be campaigning for, I'm always going to be campaigning against homophobia, sexism, racism, disableism, and any other form of oppression. So I think it's a bit of a misnomer to say that that you're going to represent all the political views of all your students.
Sure, okay. Now, all candidates mention in their campaign, unsurprisingly, the campaign against fees and cuts in their manifestos. But what other issues do you think students are facing this year, and how will you tackle them?
Well, obviously that's the major one, and we have to look at not just the fees and cuts, but how that's going to impact upon the welfare of students. We know that, for example, women are going to face the impact of the cuts 75% more than men. We know that welfare provisions for LGBT students has already suffered significantly because of the cuts. £500,000 has been removed from LGBT services in London alone. So we have to look at how we can support our students facing these tough financial pressures. What was the question?
What other campaigns or other issues will also be important for you to campaign on this year, as well as the campaign against fees and cuts?
Well, I guess I've just partly answered that, haven't I? But I mean, certainly Black History Month, LGBT History Month. We've now got International Women's Day coming up, and next week we have a number of events for that. Housing is going to be a major problem. Boris's plans are significantly going to impact on students. The difficulty with the multiple occupancy tenancy agreements is something that both myself and the University of London Housing Department are looking into. The rise in transport costs. We're all students in an international world, so issues going on in other countries, the uprisings from Tunisia to everywhere,
sure,
to Egypt, are going to have both welfare and emotional impact on students. So we have to campaign, in my opinion, against those things too.
Now, the University of London itself has 120,000 students inside that umbrella. What experience do you have that qualifies you to represent such a wide variety of individuals with such sort of different backgrounds and priorities and so on?
Well, I don't know if you read the Telegraph sort of resume of myself a couple of months ago, but I've certainly had a quite diverse background myself. I've come from a military background. My dad was a military police. I left school at 14, so I obviously understand the problems of leaving school, education so early. I had a child when I was sort of 16, 17. I've run businesses. I've done a plethora of different jobs. And obviously, having been co-president at SOAS, Finance and Communications, NUS delegate, LGBT steering committee, and lots of experience, I think, that can hopefully allow me to see all the different views.
Now, without naming names, because it contravenes the ULU election regulations, I understand. How do you think you've done this year?
Well, like I said, 11,000 people through the building alone, more than last year, is already a significant improvement on the year before. Turnover in all the different departments is up, and everything is doing really well. The first demonstration on November the 10th, we had 10,000 University of London students on that demonstration, and that increased as we did more demonstrations. So when we look at how ULU was viewed in the past, where nobody even really knew it existed, maybe they thought there was a gym, a few services maybe, but I don't think they really knew what it was or what its potential is. I think this year we've definitely put ULU back on the map.
So you've talked about what you've done over the last year, and we see also in your manifesto that you're building on a lot of what you've done over this year. But what new things are you going to bring to the table?
Well, we're going to get the gym refurbished in the summer holidays. The swimming pool desperately needs its plant changing, which is going to cost us hundreds of thousands. So we're going to have to put in place a tight plan to mitigate any potential fallouts from that. We're going to be offering an early bird gym membership for 9 to 11 in the morning. We're going to be doing women-only swimming. We're going to make sure that the colleges on the outskirts, so Royal Holloway for a start, but also Paris and Glasgow, make sure that they receive the London student. We have, in the summer, our ULU sabbatical training is normally £230 for a 4-day training course. So we're going to do that free this year. We're going to open that up to as many people as possible to come on it, so people from the whole exec team and hopefully people that are involved in campaigning. Lots of plans. Okay. Now,
you've undoubtedly done a lot of campaigning this year, but would you agree that you've changed ULU as an institution? And following on from that, is ULU currently, as it stands today, anything more than just a tool for sort of pursuing politically passionate issues for yourself and its members?
Well, if a student union isn't pursuing political passions, then I do have concerns. I mean, I think the turnout to the election last year was absolutely dismal. The year before that, only 450 people turned out for the election. This year, I will eat my hat if there are not at least double the amount of people voting in the elections.
In the ULU elections.
In the ULU elections, we had 17 people apply for the positions, including 7 for student trustee. Last year, we only had 2. So that shows you that that our approach to unionism, our approach in terms of being a campaigning union, does let people know that it is there, that it is doing something, that it's something that's worth fighting for.
One of the things that you've fought for this year have been international struggles, and you talk in your manifesto about showing solidarity and offering help to international struggles. But these can be hugely divisive. Would you not feel that it's the work of maybe NGOs and charities rather than a students' union to represent all of its members, rather than be spending time and resources on international struggles and campaigns overseas?
No, I don't think that. I don't think students live in a bubble when they come to university. They are here to learn all sorts of things. You learn in the classroom, but you also learn through political events and political campaigning. And there are there's a large number of students that are from other parts of the world that are affected by war and imperialism around the world. And like I said earlier, the impact of war on people over here is students from Iraq, when Iraq was bombed, had real problems with not only just obviously having maybe lost family members, but the increasing Islamophobia in society, increasing fascism, the rise of the BNP. These are all both local, national and international issues. I think it's important to make sure that we link them all up.
Okay, I want to move on to a statement that caused a bit of controversy that you made on Facebook. That's also been talked about in the London Student. And if you'll allow me just to quote all of it, so I'm not taking anything out of context.
Well, I don't think it's necessary for you to quote all of it, because it was a 2-paragraph thing, and this is one of the problems with this issue, is that people have taken one tiny sentence out of the context of a whole discussion on Facebook. The way that it's been represented in the press is that I'm implying that Jewish people haven't suffered in the last 100 years, where if you read it correctly and if you read it in context of the whole discussion, I was not saying that. Everybody knows that I'm an anti-racist campaigner. Everybody knows that I lived. Everybody knows that I do anti-fascist campaigning. I lived in Berlin. I've been to Berlin every year for a Holocaust Memorial Day trip with students, as we did this year. There's a report now on the blog. What I was trying to say, and I know it was really badly worded. I'm sorry. I didn't intend to cause any offence. I'm sorry if I did cause offence. But what I was trying to say is that it's just not true that Muslims and Jewish people, or people of other faiths or non-faiths, can't live together. I think that's a patronising view to think that people of different faiths can't live together.
But there have been the two really big comments that have caused a lot of the controversy. One was, yes, there is the Jewish religion, but not a Jewish people per se. I mean, did you want to expand on what you meant by that? I
don't think we need to get into the nitty-gritties of it. I mean, this is the sort of thing that many historians and many academics say, that they don't believe in the Jewish gene. That's the argument here. And I don't believe that there's a Jewish gene any more than there is, a gay gene or a number of other theories that have come out recently. That was on the back of the guy from Germany, what's his name, Severin, who was at LSE recently, who espoused this view, and that's what I was trying to argue against.
Because the other thing that you said was that the view that Jews have been persecuted all throughout history is one that has been fabricated in the last 100 years or so to justify the persecution of Palestinians. Has there not been persecution throughout history over centuries?
Well, of course, Jewish people have faced persecution at many periods throughout history, and I don't want to, like I said, keep going over this old ground, because I've proven consistently that I'm an anti-fascist campaigner. But what I was trying to say, as I said there, that there are many instances in the Middle East, specifically, where Jews and Muslims live, and still do live, harmoniously together.
I mean, without going further into it, I mean, the ultimate point of it is that UJS called for your resignation.
No, that's not true, actually. One staff member called for my resignation. And UJS know that I'm an anti-fascist campaigner, because right throughout my period at SOAS, I would regularly communicate with them and ask for advice when I did spot cases of anti-Semitism. We know that at the beginning of the year, I asked for the article in the London Student, which had an image of a hand, a Star of David, and a wad of money called the Tight Fist, and some quite awful remarks in it. I asked for that to be removed from public circulation, because I feared for the welfare of our Jewish students. I didn't want them coming to University of London and thinking that this is the sort of thing that our union doesn't stand up against. So
you would say you can definitely represent Jewish students?
I can represent. It goes back to the question of representation earlier. Jewish students that agree with my political... well, no, that's not quite right. But no, of course I can represent Jewish students. Jewish students aren't one homogenous group of students. There are LGBT Jewish students, there are women Jewish students, there are Jewish students who are facing financial problems, and these are things that I'll continue to campaign for, and I have done so throughout my time campaigning. Okay,
well, let's move on from that. You say in your manifesto that students have been more united this year than they have been in decades. But your decision to back Millbank was almost as controversial as the decision or the comment that a reporter made in condemning the event. So, going to the LSJSN survey, which showed a majority of students were against it, and the opinions that you made on Newsnight on the 10th of November, which were mixed, and the Senate, which was divided on whether or not you should be able to speak on behalf of all ULU colleges on such controversial issues. Some have argued that you're unable to represent the majority of students who feel that Millbank and some of the subsequent protests were too militant. So if you were to win again, how would you rectify that?
Rectify what?
How would you rectify the students who feel that perhaps they're not represented because you've very actively put out a stance that you're pro the militant action post-Millbank?
I don't think the position, as I explained earlier in the interview, that you can represent all students is a fair one. Of course, people have different political opinions. It's not my job to either condemn or condone violence. I think it's ludicrous to suggest that I'm promoting violence. I've put on a number of events where we have called for peaceful, non-violent direct actions or protests or whatever. We've done carnivals, we've done public meetings, and of course I support the occupations in the campuses. So, you know, if people are disagree on this issue, then I mean that's what politics is.
But you wouldn't necessarily condone the violence. Sorry, you wouldn't necessarily condemn the violence.
It's one of those words that's so easy to get wrong, isn't it?
And I've got it wrong many times. But yes, you wouldn't condemn the violence. I think that's the point I wanted to clarify.
I think you always have to see every action. You have to see the cause and effect of that action. Why did students get angry in the first place? And you know, it's the removal of their education. It's the introduction of the raising of the fees. It's the removal of the EMA. There are a lot of angry students out there, and they're going to continue to be angry. I'm sure these people will still come on the demonstration on March the 26th, and I think this is what is important for us to do right now, is to find ways to bring back those students that perhaps have been a little bit, I don't know, put off by some of the demonstrations, and get them to come out on the demonstration with all the other trade unions.
I've heard allegations that there's a poor working relationship with current ULU SAPS. Why do you think this is, and how do you make sure, if it is the case, that it doesn't happen next year?
Did you get your source from the ever-reliable London student?
And also the VP.
Well, again, people disagree on different issues, and they get on other issues. And I have worked very well together on so many different things, and if we both get I just nearly said the wrong thing then. If I get re-elected, I will do my best to work with anybody that gets re-elected or elected.
The trustee board has said that you can't organise any more ticketed events due to the contravention of finance regulations. Does this mean that, does this really call into question your managerial skills and competence of running?
Once again, that's it's not a true statement. Actually, I wasn't. We have to look at the event that I did. It was the very first event that has ever been done by ULU SABS outside of the Barfly contract. The event itself was absolutely rammed. There were no procedures in place for running the event. We don't have a full-on nightclub like you might do here or at King's with box office and staff and that sort of thing. And I literally did absolutely everything to put that event on. The money in question was about 70 quid that hadn't been accounted for by receipts, and that did eventually get accounted for because I was waiting for them to be sent to me by email. So again, it's about how do you report these issues?
Sure. All right. Finally, what have you done at ULU this year besides the campaign against fees and cuts?
Well, if you look at my blog, there's regular updates on there. We've just come back from Berlin, just come back from Paris, just come back from Tunisia, where we've linked up, or taken with us many ULU students and linked up with other students over there. We've done things around Black History Month. We did a whole conference on education, on the points-based immigration system, which is around student visas. We've done stuff with the London Living Wage campaign. We are now finding ways to implement the London Living Wage at ULU, the building. Goodness, what else? I don't seem to have a second spare, to be honest.
We will close there. Clare Solomon, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.